So biology, I mentioned the total amount of genetic data has doubled every year. It's continued past the end of the Genome Project. The cost of sequencing DNA has come down by about half every year. And basically, we are learning the software of life. And that's not a metaphor. It's not an abstraction. There are literally little software programs running in our body, 23,000 of them. They're called genes. And we actually have the technologies now to change them. How long do you go without updating the software on your phone? This is probably updating its software right now as I speak. But I'm walking around with outdated software that evolved thousands of years ago. For example, I have one gene, and I bet you have it too, called the fat insulin receptor gene. Basically says, hold on to every calorie because the next hunting season may not work out so well. And that was a very good idea 1,000 years ago. You worked all day to get a few calories. There were no refrigerators, so you consumed your prey, and then it stored it in the fat cells of your body. And that was a good idea then. I would like to tell my fat insulin receptor gene now, you don't need to do that anymore. I'm confident the next hunting season will be good in the supermarket. And so that was actually tried near where I work in the Boston area, the Joslin Diabetes Center. They turned off that gene. We have technologies that can turn genes off, like RNA interference. So they turned off that gene, and these animals ate a lot. They ate ravenously, all they wanted, and they remained slim. And it was not a fake slimness. They didn't get diabetes. They didn't get heart disease. They lived 20% longer. They got the benefits of caloric restriction while doing the opposite. And they're working with a drug company to bring that to the human market. There are genes we've identified that are needed for cancer to progress or heart disease. There are genes we'd like to add, and we have techniques to do that. For example, I'm working on a project where we take cells out of the body, lung cells, scrape them out of the throat. These are in patients who have a disease caused by a missing gene. Now, most people here have that gene, but if you're missing that gene, you will get a fatal disease called pulmonary hypertension, where the life expectancy from diagnosis is about 1 year. And really, all they're missing is this one gene. So we take one of their cells in a petri dish and add that gene, inspect in the special microscope that it got done correctly. Then we replicate it millions-fold. So now we have millions of cells with the patient's own DNA, but with the gene they're missing, inject it back in the body, goes through the body, ends up back in the lungs, and this has actually cured this fatal disease, and it's undergoing successful human trials. These are just a few of the hundreds of examples where we're basically reprogramming our biology. My father had a heart attack in 1961. It damaged his heart, so he could hardly walk. In fact, 50% of all heart attack survivors have a damaged heart. It's called heart failure, low ejection fraction. And the heart does not fix itself. Today, you can actually get these stem cell therapies and have that fixed by rejuvenating the heart with your own heart cells that have been programmed to basically rejuvenate the heart. And we're going to be, as Dr. Kaku mentioned, growing new organs. There's no longer a problem with embryonic stem cells because we can take our own skin cells and create the equivalent of an embryonic stem cell by adding 4 genes. They're called induced pluripotent cells. And the ethicists who are opposed to embryonic stem cell research because it involves embryos support this type of work because there's no embryos. And if you need a new kidney or a new liver, you'd like it to have your own DNA. So these are just a few of the ways in which we're treating health and medicine as an information technology. And the significance of that now that it's an information technology, it's going to progress in this exponential manner. These technologies are getting twice as powerful every year. That was not the case using the old method, which was really hit or miss, just accidentally finding things that work. So if I want to send you a music album, a few years ago I would send you a package and you'd get a box and you'd unwrap it and there was a music album. Today I can send you an email attachment with a link or with files to download, and I can send you music as an email. If I wanted to send you a book a few years ago, I'd send you a package. Today I can send you an email attachment. I can send you a movie as an email attachment. Well, now I can send you a violin as an email attachment if you have the three-dimensional printer, and this is not a future technology. This exists today. This is a real violin that was printed out on a three-dimensional printer. This was on the cover of a recent issue of The Economist magazine, and professional violinists have played it, and it plays quite well. Somebody printed out an airplane, one module at a time, and snapped it together and flew in it. I have a university I started with Peter Diamandis. It's sponsored by Google, and NASA, the American Space Agency, gave us a campus in Silicon Valley, and the students do team projects. One of the projects is to use three-dimensional printers to print out housing, whole houses for the developing world that are very high quality but low cost, printing them out again one module at a time and snapping them together. This is ultimately going to revolutionize manufacturing. Right now we're kind of right before the storm. It's like before search engines or before digital music. Not all the capabilities that we want are in place, but it's improving very rapidly. The costs are coming down. The resolution and fineness of features are increasing. You can already print out quite complex objects with these three-dimensional printers. And of course, we can print out whole organs, printing out the scaffolding with a three-dimensional printer, and then actually populating it with the necessary stem cells, as you saw in the video, to actually grow any organ in the body. This will be applied to medicine. Here we see these are little robotic red blood cells. Our red blood cells are little devices. They store oxygen and carbon dioxide. They release them in a certain manner. This is a device that's designed to do the same thing, but it's 1,000 times more powerful. And a calculation was made that if you were to replace a portion of your red blood cells with these little robots called respirocytes, you could do an Olympic sprint for 15 minutes without taking a breath, or sit at the bottom of your pool for 4 hours. And so, honey, I'm in the pool will take on a whole new significance. I was asked by ESPN, the sports magazine in the United States, we're going to ban these, right? Just the way we ban steroids. And I said, probably not. We should ban steroids because steroids are bad for your long-term health. So if you don't ban them, you're forcing athletes, in order to be competitive, to do something that's damaging to their long-term health. So there's a moral reason to ban them. And the fact that we don't actually enforce that very well means we actually do have that problem. But this is actually good for your health. You could have a heart attack and you'd have hours to get to the doctor. It will lead to better oxygenation of your tissues.